Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about today's topic? What to ask someone who is truly free?
I came across Osho, or then called Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, in 1978, and it wasn't until 1983, another 5 years, that I asked someone who's awake for something. And the question that I asked was, can I have sannyas? Are you willing to be my master? And I want to be your disciple because I want to become enlightened like you. And so when we look at questions that you could ask someone who's awake, you'd actually have to look at that as a as a pretty much major question. To take on a spiritual master means to take on a spiritual life, a quest for higher consciousness, a quest for heart, a quest for freedom, a quest for enlightenment. And somebody who is already free can show you the way. Someone who is not free cannot. Otherwise, they would be free themselves. So the answer to that question is pretty simple. If you really want to ask a question that's going to make a difference to your life, ask for sannyas. Are there any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to this teaching today?
What does it mean to be a sannyasin of someone who is awake?
And so there's different sects that allow sannyas. I was a Rajneesh or an Osho sannyasin. I took sannyas and took a new name. I was given the name Prem Vishrant. Prem meaning love, and Vishrant meaning relax or restful. And I think the reason I was given that name was because I was not relaxed or restful, and it was a sadhana, a teaching. And in those days, I also wore orange or red clothes because that was what my spiritual master asked us to do, to wear red clothes and wear a mala around our neck, which had a picture of him on it, and take a new name and use this new name, all significant of taking a spiritual life, becoming a sannyasin, someone who is seeking truth and wisdom. And under his tutelage, I began watching my mind. I began meditating. I began practicing openness. I practiced self-inquiry. And I started to look at leading a life that was more heart-orientated than mind-orientated. I saw him as a heart teacher, and that's the beauty way. But at the same time, I saw the value in being a meditator. I saw the value in watching my mind and seeing how it all worked. I saw the value in openness, and I found myself as truth through self-inquiry. I fell in love with him. It was a funny situation. I'd known about him for a long time, and I'd been going to the restaurants in Fremantle, West Australia, the Zorba the Buddha restaurants, and talking to his people, the other sannyasins. And I found them fascinating. They were very open, very free, and they liked to celebrate life, and that kind of matched how I like to live too. And on this weekend, there was a group being run that I decided to attend. It was a 2-day encounter group with a man called Indivar. And during that group, during that day, on the second day, I had a vision. I don't have visions, so this is very unusual for me. And in this vision, I was looking down a big water pipe, so big you could walk through it. And at the end of the water pipe, in the distance, maybe some 50 meters away, there was a little Indian man that I could see, and he was calling me. Like that, with his fingers. He's just calling me. And I looked at him, and I saw that it was Osho. It was Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh calling me. And in that moment, I decided to come. I decided to become a sannyasin. And that changed my life forever. That intervention shifted everything for me. He became my spiritual father, opened me up, allowed me to see that there was another way to live, that you could gain freedom from the mind, that you could find your heart and live with love in your life. He talked about the new man, what he called Zorba the Buddha, awake but in the marketplace, like Zorba, enjoying the juices and the fruits and the celebration of life, but being awake in the world, but not of it. When I talk about him, there is so much gratitude. So much gratitude.
The next question is as follows. How can you tell if someone is truly free or just saying that they are?
You're asking me, how can you tell if someone is enlightened or not? And the only way that you can tell that someone is enlightened is if they have a Buddha field, a field of energy around them that is different than anyone else, that expands your mind, quietens your mind. It feels like you're in fresh air rather than stale air. It allows you to have clarity. It is very beautiful. And if that Buddha field is there 24 hours a day, then that person is awake. They are enlightened, which basically means that awareness inside that human being is aware of itself continually. So you can't tell by talking to someone, by listening to the words, because anyone can talk the spiritual words. Anyone can regurgitate the knowledge. You can't tell by the manner in which they talk or the manner in which they walk or what they're up to, really. The only thing that is a dead giveaway that someone is awake is a Buddha field. If they have it and it's continuous, they're awake. If they do not have it, they are not awake. And so when I was hunting gurus, because I wanted to be with them, I searched for the ones who had the Buddha field. Elegance didn't impress me. Mannerisms didn't impress me. Only the Buddha field. Because in that Buddha field, I could dissolve. I could disappear. I could find myself as the space that everything appears in.
The next question has been written by a viewer on YouTube. Hi Vishrant, could you give us some questions that turn awareness back on itself? Thank you, Vishrant.
Okay. And so I used self-inquiry, Advaita Vedanta style, which is asking the question, who am I? Or following the I back to source. At some stage it changed for me to what's aware, because there was glimpses of who I really was, and it wasn't an I. You couldn't call it an I. It was a something, a that is everything. And so I changed the question to what's aware. And every thought that came into my mind was challenged with that what's aware. And awareness was turning back to itself. It wasn't staying on itself for that long, but it was turning back to itself. There was a view of the emptiness, a view of nothingness. It was like I was walking around a great abyss of emptiness. And I kept inquiring. And at some point, instead of looking at the emptiness, instead of looking at the abyss, I found I was the abyss, and everything was appearing in me. And so if you ask the question, who's aware? You don't answer it. If another thought arises, you ask, who's aware of that thought? Who's aware? What's aware? You just keep inquiring until there's nothing left. And you make it a game. Don't make it so serious. Make it a play. I used to ask the question for hours and hours and hours on end. Towards the end, I asked it continuously, any time the thought arose, what's aware? But it was a game. It was fun. It wasn't a hardship. It wasn't a tough journey. It was just a game. What's aware? When I had a talk with Osho in 1985. I interviewed him for 40 minutes. And I had a certain number of questions. I think it was 12 questions. And there was one question I didn't ask. It was the last question. And the question that I was going to ask him was, who am I? Because that's the most important question you can ever ask yourself. Who am I, really? And anything your mind comes up with is false. The question is designed to turn that's aware of the mind back to itself. So awareness can be aware of itself.
The next question is from Neil.
Hello, Vishrant.
Hello, Neil.
So my question is, can everyone sense the Buddha field in a master, or do we have to develop certain skills to sense the Buddha field in a master?
Good question. When I first came to see Osho in 1984 in America, I could barely feel him, if anything, because my mind wasn't ready. I was too closed. I'd been a businessman for a long time, and had a businessman's mind, and I was basically too closed. The following year, after a year of meditating and self-inquiry and opening up, the following year he blew my socks off. So the mind has to be ready to perceive the master. It has to be ripe, as Ramana Maharshi put it.
Mm-hmm.
But a mind that is ripe will definitely perceive Buddha field.
Right. And when you say the word sannyasin, what comes to my mind is someone who abstains from everything that's materialistic and leaves his family behind. So that's the image that comes to my mind. So what exactly is a sannyasin?
That is a traditional sannyasin, what you've just described. That is true. Osho had what he called neo-sannyas, sannyasins that didn't deny life, actually squeezed the juice out of life, but still made truth, made the way of the heart more important than anything else. And so they developed a lifestyle and a life that was dedicated to enlightenment, dedicated to higher consciousness, dedicated to heart, while still celebrating life rather than playing life be out of it. Osho saw that as a fault, not as a asset. And I agree. We've got this amazing spacesuit called a body with a bit of a mad computer on board to play in this realm with. Why deny it? Why not squeeze the juice out of life? Why not celebrate life while practicing acceptance, while practicing meditation, while practicing self-inquiry?
Right. And I also tried to meditate a couple of days ago for 1 hour and just pay attention to my breath. But I noticed that after 30 minutes, my whole body was struggling and asking me to stop doing it and get up and do something else. So is this struggle normal?
In the beginning, yes, because you're used to being entertained. You, like every other adult on the planet, is a bit of an entertainment junkie, and meditation's a bit dull. The mind wants something more, and so the only way to overcome that is to keep practicing. Set yourself a time every day and do it every day. Don't give yourself a choice. If you do, you'll fail, because the mind will choose the easy way. It always does. So if we have a look at what discipline is just not giving yourself a choice, really. That's all it is. But if you keep practicing meditation, it will become your love affair, because it is so beautiful to find that silence, that stillness, that emptiness inside. Your mind will fall in love with it, and it will fall in love with meditation. But that's going to be up to you. You have to defeat the entertainment junkie first.
Right. I will be consistent. Thank you.
Sorry, what was that?
I will be consistent and I will practice meditation.
Good for you. Well, that's what's going to work for you. Nothing else. You can't gain knowledge that will help you. The only thing that does work is practice.
All right. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you, Neil.
The next question has been written by a viewer on YouTube. How is love related to pure consciousness? I thought pure consciousness is like a camera, only reflecting truly what is. How does the camera have love? Thank you.
Good question. And the answer to that is I don't know. Sometimes I know self as the whole universe, every particle at once. And sometimes I know self as the whole universe, every particle at once as love. I don't understand it, and I can't pretend to understand it. Love is the most beautiful thing, really. And if we're open enough, whether we're awake or not, we can perceive it. Most people don't perceive that much love because they're too closed. You could say that love appears in beingness, the vast emptiness, the vast nothingness that we are. You could say that it is all of that. I don't really know. I know self as both. And my mind's okay with not knowing.
The next question has been written by a viewer. Osho appeared to me and told me that I am a son's mum. What should I do with it? It does happen often that young male seekers ask me to be their teacher. I'm also a seeker. Young males always have had a connection with me if they could not ask their own mothers very intimate questions.
Well, just forget about enlightenment, forget about that for a second. Just as a male or a female that is mature, an adult, I think that it is our job to take care of everyone and everything. I think that that's the role of mature adults, to be guides for those who are ignorant to the ways of life. And there is nothing wrong in that. I think in a lot of ways our society lacks the wise. That's why people go to psychologists and psychiatrists for advice and counselors, because people don't get too wise. They don't mature enough. If you're a mature adult, you've got plenty to show people. Because if you're a mature adult, you're probably experiencing a certain level of happiness. And that's the one thing we're not taught at school. We're not taught how to be happy. We're not taught how to be anything other really than efficient little machines. If you've matured and you're not being a victim to life anymore because you're taking full responsibility for yourself, you're probably reasonably happy, because humans are naturally buoyant. The only thing that really brings them down is their negativity, their victim-orientated thinking. So if you have wisdom, pass it on. If you can help someone up a little bit higher in consciousness, help them up. Why not?
Next, Susha has a question.
Hi, Vishrant.
Hello.
Vishrant, when I sit in your presence, I find silence. And some days like today, I only find tears. What happens? What's happening?
Something inside of you has opened. Some defense system, some coping mechanism has dissolved. And what's been underneath it is surfacing. Some type of pain body, some sadness that can leave now, that you've been holding in your body somewhere. And it's going. And so you just be grateful that this old friend is leaving. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susha.
The next question has been written by Marcus. If I meditate 5 minutes minimum every day, is that enough to get enlightened?
Marcus, you're a jokester. Meditation needs to be every moment, being present to reality every moment. The reason that people are so lost is just they live in their heads dreaming constantly. Marcus, put your awareness on what is real, keeping in mind the only thing that is not real is what you think. Being aware of what is real is meditation. Now, you can have formal meditation of watching your breath, or you can have the meditation of being present to the movement of your body, the movement of everything around you, the sounds, the sights. The only thing that's not real is what you think about them. Be aware of everything that's real and abandon everything that's false. This is meditation. And up until the age of about 4, to a large degree, you lived in meditation. Then you went to school and you learned how to live in your head. Now you're probably stuck there, thinking that what you're thinking is real, when it is not. There is nothing real about what anyone thinks. Up to you. Whatever you practice, you're going to get good at. 5 minutes is definitely not enough. How about all day long, every day? That's pretty cool.
The next question from Marcus, I think you've already answered, but I'll read it anyway. How can I meditate all day, every day, while still being effective in the marketplace?
I've already answered it. But the bit about being effective in the marketplace is the more present you are in the marketplace, the more effective you are. People who are very present to what's happening around them aren't clumsy. They don't make as many mistakes as people who are living in their heads. People who are truly switched on are present to reality. When I was a businessman, I played at a reasonably high level. And the people who were super successful were the ones who are really switched on. They were the ones who are really present.
The following question has been written by a viewer on YouTube. Hi Vishrant, you've probably talked about it before, but when you became enlightened, did you wake up to some eye-opening truth? Thanks.
No, not really. Because I'd had Satori's from 1987 all the way up to 1999. There was no mystery in it for me because I'd experienced so much of the nothingness itself. What happened in 87 after awakening is my consciousness definitely rose, and I got to see clearly how everybody is suffering, how everybody is caught in their desires, caught in their fear of losing what they're attached to, while pretending to be happy. I got to see more reality. I got to see that the mind itself was not real, and that everything that it thought was not real. I got to recognize the impermanence of life, how everything dies. I got to see a lot, but this was before enlightenment. This is after Satori's in the 80s. It changed my life. I gave up my businesses so I could serve heart. Because I saw that my businesses and just making money for the sake of making money was a sham. And that the only way to truly live here beautifully and in a way that was worthwhile was the way of the heart. And so that was an outstanding realization. And so I went back to school after a while and trained in naturopathy and psychotherapy so I could have some tools that I could help people with, so I could be in service. Because I wasn't prepared to do anything else in business. I was only willing to serve heart. And that meant to be in service. The service of human beings for me. And that was my love affair with truth and my love affair with heart.
I've heard you say that you should listen like your life depends on it when an awakened teacher gives you an answer. How do I truly do this?
One of the problems that humans have is they think they know already. And quite often they think they know better. But unfortunately, these filters get in the way of hearing. And so when you come towards someone who knows more than you, who's further ahead than you have to listen like you're a beginner. And one of the ways to do that is to listen like your life depends upon it. And then you may hear what's being said, but only may. Humans have so many filters that something that's said has to get through before they even comprehend it, that it's difficult. And so if you listen like your life depends upon it, you might hear me.
What kind of questions do you encourage your students to ask?
Questions that don't involve me doing the work, like the question you just asked me.
That's good.
It's so funny, people come before me and they want me to do the work for them. Hey, I've already done all the work, it's your turn. You have to undo your mind now. You have to take away all the obstacles. You have to do the meditations and the self-inquiries. You have to practice the openness. I already done all that. It's your turn.
The next question has been written by a viewer. What happens if my husband is not happy that I am on the spiritual journey because I have changed while he's still the same?
Yeah. We're not really responsible for other people's happiness. We're responsible for our own. And this has been a life difficulty for every seeker. If they're with someone who's not a seeker, there's going to be problems, because the one that's not a seeker is not going to understand, particularly if they start changing. In my own lifetime, I was given a choice when I took sannyas with Osho, Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh. My fiance said, well, you can be with him or you can be with me. And I did love my fiance very, very much. But I knew that my life was about spirituality It was about finding reality as self. And so she left me because I chose Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh. So I do understand the problem. It is difficult for seekers to be with people who are not into truth because they're not going to support what they're into, or it's unlikely they will anyway. Always put truth first. Always put heart first. Always.
The next question. Do you have to accept not knowing in order to be free?
Heck yeah. Because the higher in consciousness you go, the more you realize that you don't know. People who think they know are usually locked somewhere in lower consciousness. The higher you go, the more you realize you do not know. And when you wake up, when awakening occurs, you really know you don't know.
The next question is, what is the price for true freedom?
Everything. Everything that you're hanging on to, you have to let go of. You can't hold on to anything. It doesn't mean you can't have things. You can have whatever you like. You just can't be attached to it. That's all. And so you can be in the world, but you can't be of it. Not really. You can't be attached to anything, but you can have whatever you like. So the price for enlightenment is everything that you're attached to. And that can include belief systems, ideologies, anything. You can't be attached to anything. For me, the hardest thing to let go of wasn't ideologies or belief systems. It was my children. Because I had 2 younger children and 1 older child. And I realized that with entering the nothingness, finding the nothingness of self, things might change. Because the ego was dropping, the I was dropping, the sense of control was leaving. And so I had to make a choice. And my mind chose truth. It chose to surrender unconditionally to truth.
When you say you let go of your children, what do you mean?
Well, as you approach, as our enlightenment approaches, as you can sense that something's happening, that you are finding emptiness as self, you realize that all your control is leaving. Everything's leaving. You don't know what the future is going to be. You have no idea. You don't even know if you're going to survive enlightenment. You don't know if you're going to have a tomorrow. You've let it all go. So after awakening occurred, I didn't go anywhere. I stayed where I was. But I lost pretty much everything. I lost my money, I lost my reputation, I lost my children. My wife took them for a while. I lost my business completely. Clients would come, they'd sit in front of me, I'd stare at them. They would leave because they didn't want to just be stared at in silence because my mind was totally flatlined. And so I lost my client base inside 2 months. But people started coming to sit because they could feel the presence. And so Satsang began. Association with truth began. And my wife came back. She brought the children back. She took them about a week or two after, because she recognized that the Vishrant she knew, the Vishrant she had married, had actually gone. And there was just emptiness here now. And that is a bit hard for someone to be with. Because we're used to very personal interactions with people. And someone who's awake is no longer personal. There's nothing personal about them. That's gone. Because we are not persons. And there is no such thing as personal. We are one.
The next question is as follows. Can you please explain what is shared in the teaching of silence?
Silence is the highest teaching. Not many people are ready for silence. They want to be entertained. They want to understand things. They want to collect knowledge. Silence is the highest teaching. I don't meet that many people who are ready for silence. Before awakening occurred, before the Advaita Vedanta teachers came to Perth in 1998, I was going up to Rishikesh to live up there with my family because I wanted to sit with the Mona teachers. Mona means silent, the silent teachers, because I already learnt unconditional surrender, and I just wanted the energy field of the Buddhas because I recognized that in that Buddha field I could die as an I. Silence is the highest teacher. There is nothing higher. If you tune in, you'll feel the silence. You'll feel the stillness. All awakened people carry it profoundly.
How is asking questions important to a seeker's quest for truth?
Well, a seeker has to be an investigator. That's what a seeker is. You're investigating. You're lifting the rocks to see what's under them. You're challenging the status quo. A true seeker is a rebel. They become an anarchist against their own mind because it was programmed by other people who didn't know who they were. And so the seeker investigates everything, approaches everything with doubt. Prove it to me, show me. And this is one of the things that I loved about Osho. He said, don't believe me, check it out for yourself. I have the same attitude. Do not believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. Find out for yourself. Look where I am pointing. Don't believe me. If you just take on belief systems and collect them as knowledge, you're just as lost as before you began collecting them. It is only practice that changes you and prepares the mind for enlightenment. Nothing else.
Is there anything that shouldn't be discussed with an enlightened person?
People discuss everything with me. I don't have a problem with it. Why would I? See, people think that someone who's awake is holy. Holiness is rubbish. It's just an idea. This whole idea that there's something that's holy and there's something that's not is just silly. We are all one. There is no holy. There is no not holy. There is just what is. Find yourself as truth. Self-inquire. Ask who's the question. Who's there? Who's there? What am I? What am I really? Ask the question. Find yourself as truth and be free. I do not believe there is a better game on this planet than the game of higher consciousness. Everything else is probably a waste of time. Go for higher consciousness.
The next question has been written by Marcus. Vishrant, if I was your sannyasin, what are the first steps you would assign to me?
Marcus, I don't know. I'd have to meet you either personally in Satsang here or on Zoom. I'd have to meet you and talk to you and see how you are. And in that conversation, you will deliberately or accidentally show me where your problems are, where your obstacles are that are in the way of you going higher in consciousness. And I will point them out to you so you can actually have a look at them and remove them. That, of course, will be up to you. All I can do is point. So people come to me and they ask for sannyas, and I talk to them. And after talking to them for a while, I work out what it is that's actually in their way. What would help them get free quickly? And I give them a name, and that name is a sadhana or a teaching that will help them get free. It'll mean something. Like my name meant restful love, and that was the last thing I was. And so I had to find a way to facilitate that, to be restful and to be love. And through practice, that occurred, but only through practice. And so if you talk to me, I'll see what's there if I can. And I'll show you, I'll tell you. Up to you.
The next question is from Abai.
Hi, Vishrant.
Hello, Abai.
Vishrant, when I'm at home and in my regular life, I am practicing certain like meditation and other things. And as soon as I go out, meet other people, I start losing all this centering. I start losing my discipline as well. Can you tell me something which will help me
Yeah.
practice without affected?
So basically you're falling back into your default patterns when you go out. What about making openness more important than anything else that you do?
Yes.
You see, if you make
Yes.
it more important than anything else you do, you will practice it and you'll remove all the obstacles that are in the way of higher consciousness. But you have to make openness, you have to see the value of openness and make it more important than anything else.
Okay.
See, if you come in contact with someone who's awake, you'll discover that they're wide open. Now, they were like that before awakening, otherwise they probably wouldn't have woken up. And so the practice of openness is brilliant because it facilitates higher consciousness and it facilitates heart, love. And so if you're going out in the marketplace, make openness more important than anything else and practice it.
Yeah, I should do. I should do that, definitely.
Yeah, not
Thank
should,
you very much.
not should. No, do that.
Yes. Yeah, right. I will do that. Yes.
Okay, that's better.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you, Abhay.
The next question has been written by a viewer. Can you talk more about openness? And what does that mean? Thank you.
Wow, I just did. Open, closed. And most people live like this. Can you live like this? Can you walk through the world vulnerable? Or are you going to go into the world defended and closed? Is up to you. You would have been programmed from birth to be closed, to defend yourself from feeling this and feeling that. Can you open right up and walk through the world with openness, even when people attack you? Can you remain open? Can you live like an open palm instead of a closed fist? It takes courage. It's up to you. It's only with courage that we step through our fears. And our fears are all defense systems, and they're in the way. They're in the way of us being vulnerable. They're in the way of love. Take them down. Practice openness. Identify them. Don't serve them. Don't serve defense systems. Don't serve fear. Remove all obstacles that are in the way of freedom and be free. Live openly. Be vulnerable in the world. Let the world pass through you instead of getting caught in you. Then you'll perceive love. This is the beauty way.
How can you stay open when your wounding is being touched?
Okay. So you have to be reasonably conscious to stay open when your wounding is touched, because you have to be conscious enough to stop the reaction of closure. And so we're talking higher consciousness in a lot of ways. Someone who can stay open when wounding is being touched has higher consciousness. Instead of reacting to the touch, they're responding, and they're responding with doing nothing. This is someone who's advanced. This is someone who has a mind that has probably done a lot of the work already. And this is one of the ways that you can tell in yourself how your consciousness levels are rising. If things that used to get you, used to close you, still touch you, but they don't close you, your consciousness levels are rising, because instead of unconsciously reacting, you are now responding with doing nothing. This is a pretty good measure. It's difficult. It takes practice. And in a way, it begins with a willingness to meet everything with a warm okayness. Whatever appears in you, you meet with a warm okayness. This is where it begins. And that's up to you. No one can do that for you. Only you can supply the warm okayness, which is acceptance.
The following question has been written by Neil. Osho said that awakening could be gradual or sudden. So is it up to us to decide if we want to awaken gradually or suddenly?
I don't think so. I don't think you have a choice. You know, you can really, really want to awaken and it mightn't happen. It's not like it's an accident. You can prepare the ground for that accident. You can prepare a mind that will support enlightenment, but you can't really create enlightenment. That's an accident that happens or doesn't happen, which is probably related to karma, because everything is. So you prepare the ground, and then enlightenment will either occur or it will not occur. It's an accident. It will either be sudden or it will be slow, but it's an accident. All you can do, the best you can do, is prepare the mind to support what has been found. That's all. And that's quite a task in itself, to teach the mind to not constantly react, to not go into resistance to life, but to remain open. But the beauty of that is, if you can teach the mind to do that, you can perceive love in all things. And now you've found the true jewel of consciousness, love itself. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.